professor at Iona College in Chicago. We have Hari Sevugan, former spokesman for the 2008 Obama campaign. And in Washington, we have Ryan Williams, Mitt Romney's deputy national press secretary in the 2012 campaign. Thanks, all three. Let's start with this. And today, also on the Sunday talk shows, President-elect Mike Pence defending Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General pick today. This is what he said. Let's listen to that first.
I'm very confident that in the course of the confirmation hearings that his record in its totality will come out. This is a man who prosecuted the KKK in his own home state. This is someone who demonstrated personal courage, and I think you're going to see an outpouring of support from diverse voices, including the African American community in his home state and across the country. I'm very confident Senator Jeff Sessions will be the next Attorney General of the United States.
Jeannie, two sides of the coin. Southern Poverty Law Center saying he's related to 3 or 4 groups that are quote-unquote deeply racist. On the flip side, those supporters say that's 1986. We're looking at 30 years ago. How do you think this is going to play out in the confirmation hearings?
I think they could potentially be tough confirmation hearings. I do think Jeff Sessions has worked long and hard to establish a relationship in the Senate, and of course, I think that is going to probably help carry him through at the end of the day. But even if he gets through, which I think the votes are probably there to get him through, I think he could have a tough time as Attorney General given some of those past statements. That's right, they are 30 years old, but they are highly charged and highly racially divisive statements. And I think it is a curious pick on Donald Trump's part to put Jeff Sessions in for that reason. Yes, he was loyal to Donald Trump, incredibly loyal, but he's also being named Attorney General, and I think it's going to raise some real challenges for Jeff Sessions if he does assume office.
You know, to that point about loyalty, Hari, as we look at who walked through the doors today, Wilbur Ross, billionaire, one of the few, if you will, Fortune 500 leaders and billionaires that supported Donald Trump very early on, proving loyalty again, potentially could lead to a Commerce Secretary nod for him. What might that mean if a Wilbur Ross steps into the fray?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump's biggest concern should be whether he's going to fulfill his promise to drain the swamp. What we've seen so far is he's filled his transition and early interviews for his administration with lobbyists and corporate titans and billionaires, folks that are rigging the system. He promised to drain the swamp, but instead he's filling it with anacondas.
And when you think about Wilbur Ross, the interesting thing here, Ryan, is that he is not, as if you will, anti-China. If we were to look at some of the words that were used by Donald Trump during the election, in fact, Wilbur Ross doesn't use those sorts of words at all when he discusses China-U.S. relations. How might that play out? Because it's a bit complex here in terms of the picks that potentially could fill his cabinet.
Well, I think the president-elect deserves credit for reaching out kind of beyond his inner circle right now. Someone like Wilbur Ross, who may differ with him on China in terms of some of his policy positions, people like Governor Romney, who clearly disagreed with him over the course of the campaign, and even to some Democrats, people like Michelle Rhee, who I believe is scheduled to come out to the golf course this weekend, and others. He also reached out to Senator Chuck Schumer today in a tweet. So I think that it's encouraging to see him reach beyond his inner circle at this point. We're still very early in the transition. There's been a lot of criticism of the movements of this transition being slow. Well, that doesn't stack up compared to other transitions. Yeah. President Obama, George Bush, they named their very senior cabinet secretaries in December. So I think we're on a good track right now.
Reflect on it, Ryan, because you brought up your ex-boss here when we were talking about Mitt Romney, the governor from Massachusetts, and he being a very clear critic of Donald Trump during the process of the election. Michelle Rhee, a firebrand, though a Democrat, when it comes to education. A very interesting mix. Do you think your boss might get it?
I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations. I haven't spoken to Governor Romney since the meeting, but I do think it's encouraging that Donald Trump is willing to reach out to someone like Mitt Romney, even if he doesn't include him in his administration. He's mending fences, trying to reach out beyond the inner circle of people who delivered the presidency to him through his campaign, and I'm encouraged to see him meeting with Governor Romney, even if it doesn't result in a cabinet appointment.
Jeannie, what do you think that might mean? A Governor Romney as Secretary of State, a Michelle Rhee as a potential Secretary of Education. Some of these, we've heard the term team of rivals, but at least a team of variety, certainly. What might that mean as he tries to get them through not only the Senate, but supporters in his ecosystem spectrum of power.
I think both Michelle Rhee and Mitt Romney would be brilliant choices if indeed they were chosen. It adds an enormous diversity to the cabinet that's emerging, and obviously it's still very early. And as you mentioned, they are not late in the game in making these appointments. They're, in fact, right on track. But I do think it would add diversity in terms of the ideology of the Trump administration and the idea that you really do need a set of diverse voices, rather, in the cabinet. Those two would add that. And I also think in Mitt Romney in particular, Governor Romney, would give a face to the Trump administration worldwide that might be welcome and really help calm some of the frayed nerves that are out there, not just at home, but abroad, as people haven't had a chance to see Donald Trump or President-elect Donald Trump in a public setting, in a public official office. This would give them some kind of peace that have a Mitt Romney, somebody with his background and his prowess out there. I think it would be a brilliant PR choice, and I also think it would be smart on the president's part to choose him.
If anything, it's consoling, at least at this moment, how real or unreal all of these individuals and all these names are as they enter through that door we've been watching for the last 2 days. And Hari, as an example of that, one of the more intriguing names stopping by, and that's Hollywood power broker Ari Emanuel. The coincidence, and it's very personal for me, not personal, but I've been watching all of the reruns of Ari Gold on Entourage as of late. He, of course, is that super agent that was characterized in Entourage. And perhaps more interesting, he's also the brother of Chicago Mayor and Democrat Rahm Emanuel. What do you make of all of these different characters and what they represent?
Yeah. Well, if Ari Emanuel is the Ari of Entourage, I would guess Rudy Giuliani must be the turtle of that group. But I'm not entirely sure what to make of Ari Emanuel there. But I suspect it is something which one of your guests just said. There's a lot of PR moves going on, and that's what this is really about. I'd be surprised to see Michelle Rhee appointed because she's such a strong supporter of Common Core, which would really drive against Donald Trump's base. But, you know, the idea that these sort of PR moves would outweigh some of these other appointments in very important roles. General Flynn, as National Security Advisor, where he said some of these sort of incendiary things against Muslims that are going to be main sources of intelligence to keep the country safe, is very, very troubling. And beyond that, General Flynn is also, we found out this week, a lobbyist for foreign governments. You can't distract from the substantive problems of this transition and the people that they're looking at, both in terms of their conflicts of interest and their ability to bring about real change with sort of, you know, shiny balls.
All right, Jeannie Zaino, Hari Sevugan, and Ryan Williams, thank you so much. Still time for you to make your voice heard on our first Pulse question. Agree or disagree to this? President-elect Trump will carry out